good evening and thank you for joining us. We're coming to you from the Athena Hotel in Bugolobi, and tonight we'll be speaking about brain drain. I have in the studio with me 4 people who have left this country for one reason or the other, and they've made their way back home. So we sort of want to get into their heads and understand why they left, why they came back, what they were doing while they were away, what contribution they were making, and now that they're back home for now, what's the plan? I'll very quickly introduce them, and I'll start from right next to me. We have Helen Cheyune, who is an engineer, and she's still in school, still studying again.
Yes, studying again. Good evening.
Okay, and right next to her we have Dr. Peter Waso, who is at the Baylor College of Medicine, Mulago Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers.
Okay. And right up there we have Dr. Joseph Lubega, who is a specialist at Texas Children's Hospital. That's very telling. Texas means not here.
Yes.
So you're not really back home?
Still thinking about it.
Okay. And finally up there we have Juliana Lubwama. Mrs. Juliana Lubwama is a director at HL Construction. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
All right, let's say it as it is. Brain drain is one of the problems that Uganda has, and many less industrialized countries as well, and they have to find a solution to Ugandans who go out there, acquire important skills, and which the country really needs: doctors, engineers, and project managers. And do they ever come back? If they do, some of them are here. We'll ask the questions: why did you leave in the first place? I don't know where to start. I'm just going to open it up for the bravest.
I think the reasons why people leave are really specific, the individual. But generally, I'll speak for myself. I left this country for 3 main reasons. One, to seek further professional growth in terms of training, to explore the world, adventure. I was a young person then, much younger. And also to get a better standard of living for myself. For the time I was away, certainly. Those are the key reasons why I left.
And did it work? Did you get everything you hoped to get when you were leaving?
I'm fortunate I achieved my objectives. I went into training, completed the training. That's a success, a tick off. I earned a better salary when I was training, while I worked there. So that's something that worked for me. Secondly, it gave me an opportunity to explore, to see what the world looks like, how things work elsewhere.
Okay.
When I left the first time, I just started working, and this was a rite of passage. You finish university, you do your masters, you work a little, do your masters, come back home or stay there. And what happened was I was lucky I got a scholarship. And I was working for Uganda Communications Commission at that time. And at that time, that was 2005, yeah. That was when the communications industry was going through a lot of changes. We were moving from a duopoly where we only had MTN and UTL, and we were opening up the market. So we didn't have those skills. And I got a scholarship from the Vodafone Foundation, but for 1 year in Glasgow. And part of the agreement was that I should come back to use the skills that I've gained in Uganda. And the course was actually specifically tailored to countries that were transitioning in terms of communications regulation. Actually, everyone was picked from countries such as Brazil, China, etc., where things were changing. And I did come back after a year, and I implemented quite a lot of what I learned. I liked that course because actually it was something where you actually go to work and you're implementing the things that you learned. And I did that for the next 10 years or so, until I felt that I needed to do something different. So that's why I went back, and now I'm back studying, this time engineering projects management, because I think that's what we now need. We need a lot of project management skills, because most of the projects are going haywire. So yeah, and right now I'm back to do research for my dissertation.
And then you're going back?
Yeah, because I'm doing the dissertation.
Okay. So you're traveling, you're going away was to get something to come and give back to home?
Yes, because the dissertation is based on things that I want to implement in Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you said we need a lot of project management skills, so I'll go to the project manager up there and find out, Juliana, why did you leave in the first place?
Yes, so I left in 2003, right after high school. I went to Mount St. Mary's, Namagonga for my high school. I was really interested in studying a field called electronic business, and that was a field that was actually fairly new in Uganda. It's actually a course that wasn't offered. So I left, I went to the US for that, and that is what I studied. I worked there for about 7 years, and now I'm back.
Did you bring it back home?
Yes, so actually during my time in the US, I achieved a lot. One, I was able to get my undergraduate, do my master's, but also I think the work experience I gained in the corporate world. I think working in the US, there is a lot of accountability. You're measured by key performance indicators. So being able to bring that and actually implement it at HO Construction, which is a family-owned business where I'm currently working, is what I've been able to achieve.
Okay. Dr. Joseph.
Yeah, so my reason for leaving was basically that while I was in medical school in Makerere, you used to read about all these fancy things people in developed countries are able to do, including curing diseases like cancer using all sorts of technologies. Would read about them and never apply them. And I really felt that I wanted to be one of those people who do these fancy things and be on the cutting edge of technology and science and discovery. And the other reason is at the time, my experience of most doctors I knew was they lived a very impoverished life. We used to hang out with very senior doctors in Wandege, and you're a student and even the senior guy can't pay for soda. And I felt I needed to go out and make some money. I used to read about how doctors in the UK and USA make a lot of money. So I thought, why not? I don't want to be unable to take care of my family when I grow up.
You don't want to be the one that the senior doctor they'll be looking at and saying, "Can you buy a soda?"
Yeah, exactly.
Can we buy you a soda?
Can we buy you a soda? Yes.
Exactly.
When you look at, so there are a lot of people that leave for, you said, for many reasons, right? A lot of people don't come back. Why did you guys decide to come back?
A number of things. One, I had an opportunity it was an avenue that made it easier to come back. I was coming back to work in an environment which gave me the opportunity to practice what I'd learned over there, but also an opportunity to impact on my own people. One thing to train abroad is that yes, you get a lot of skills, but actually a lot of skilled people. So the impact you have on, certainly as a doctor, a specialist doctor, on patients in the West isn't particularly as high as you would have here, because here the need is greater than there. So I think that's the most important driving factor. The ability to cause change, to influence events and create a difference.
Yes, so I'll tell you my story. So I feel that I really reached the pinnacle of medicine in the US. Got a professorship at a top medical school in the US, and I spend all my time doing research and spending lots of money on trying to discover new cures for childhood cancer for the 20% of the kids who can't be cured in the US today. And yet I have all this knowledge and skills, and my center even has resources that can help cure the tens or hundreds of thousands of children in Uganda, in Africa, who have cancer. So to me, it was really a moral call that my skills could make a big impact on people elsewhere, and I made a decision that I'll come back and do it. And
you came back. When did you come back?
So I came back in 2016 with a clear mission to train specialists in childhood cancer in this country and for the region, and to improve the care of children with cancer and sickle cell disease in this region.
And I think part of the enabling environment, as we said, is that we were fortunate that we had employment in a Western facility or hospital institution that allowed us to come back and work in this environment in our country. So I'm saying that because a lot of, I suppose some of the reasons why people may be reluctant to come back here to Africa is that perhaps they don't think that perhaps they will maintain a reasonable standard of living when they come back, because they'll have to come and compete in the job market. Perhaps their skills want to be appreciated, and perhaps may not be absorbed readily into the job market. So that kind of that uncertainty perhaps puts off people that would have otherwise come back.
I think it's absolutely right. I've never have come back here if, one, I didn't have a stable job in the USA, and if I wasn't sure that if things don't work out,
you have somewhere to go.
I have somewhere to go.
Yeah, exactly. I also, the first time I came back, but it was really enabled by the fact that my job was waiting for me, and there were things that I needed to implement that were waiting for me to implement. Right now, the world is now really my oyster. There's so much I could do. I don't have that obligation to come back. So things would be different. I'd probably look for a job in Uganda after I finish because it's home. It's home. It's, honestly, for me, it's the best place to live. Yes, social services may be not so great, but it's home. There is something that, that does to you. But, you look out there, the jobs are looking for people. Here in Uganda, it's people who are looking for jobs. So you might apply in the UK. First thing is you have maybe about 100 jobs to apply to. In Uganda, you might have 2 jobs to apply to.
With a competition of about 500,000
exactly.
people.
And she makes a really good point. And if anyone asked me, would I do this again? I'd say absolutely yes. Why? Because like she said, when you go out there, really expand your possibilities. Nothing binds you to stay there. You can always come back to Uganda, to home. You can go to any other African country. You can go back to wherever you've moved to abroad. So,
Julian, I'm curious about what you're thinking.
I think the pool definitely is there to stay. I mean, after I finished studying, I had a great job. But I think for me, always, when I went, I made a commitment that I would actually come back because I felt that I had a positive contribution to make to Uganda. Again, a lot of people leave and they don't come back. But in my case, we have a family-owned business to run. So it was a great opportunity for me to come back and be able to share, because when I was there, I was actually mentored into the person I am today. So I felt like if I stayed, I was actually cheating maybe my parents who had invested into my education with the intention for me to come back. So me coming back and actually saying that, look, I'm going to try and impart, the knowledge, the skills that I've learned to, my fellow co-workers or mentor young people. So for me, that's one of the reasons why staying was not an option. Yes.
I think one of the biggest fears for people is the money. That we're not going to be able to afford to pay them nearly as well. I don't even know if it gets into the same sentence. Yeah. That a doctor, an engineer, or a project manager abroad.
Exactly. Things in Uganda seem to be upside down. Teachers earn really next to
nothing.
Yeah, I didn't want to use any of those words. Doctors too. These are people who are the ones that make the nation. I was once telling my friends that apart from doctors, really, the rest of us did not go to school because Can you
tell them?
And the teachers who told them, because
Say
if someone is dying,
just say that again.
I said it once. It's enough. If someone was dying, actually, it came to me. I was once at a train station, and they were calling on those They were making an announcement for someone, a medical person, to go and help someone. And I stood there, and I would have loved to help, but I couldn't. And I thought, okay, so really in life, if I can't save a person who is in need, it makes you really understand where you stand in life. What usefulness do you have to people in life? So when you see that here in Uganda, the salary structure is so skewed, it's painful. It's quite painful. I can't say that I was a victim of that, honestly. I used to earn a good salary. But it needs to be countrywide. People who are working every day, risking their lives every day, should not be paid less.
And just add on what Helen's saying, it's one thing about just the salary, but what are the incentives in this country who earns more? So the system generally doesn't run on productivity. It runs on many other things, influence and political influence and so on and so forth. So really it becomes difficult as a professional to excel. And it can be actually discouraging if you're an institution values stability more than progress, then it can be very, for people who have drive and want to do things and want to improve, it can be very discouraging.
I guess it sort of feels like the appreciation for the professionals that you are, or that we are, is not appreciated.
Yes, let me tell you, for example, I really wanted to do civil engineering when I was in high school, but I thought of finishing 4 years of hard work and 4 years of hard study, and then I go and I earn 200,000 a month. It just didn't add up. For me, it didn't add up.
Considering the school fees you were paying in school. Or you were a government student, perhaps?
I was a government student. But considering the hard work you're putting in, and civil engineers, I think, work extremely hard. You spend the whole day supervising road construction. I just didn't, it didn't add up. So I went for electrical engineering, which was a bit more lucrative because, of course, of the innovation that goes on in electrical engineering, and that's how I ended up in communications. But when you actually go to the UK, we really need to study the way those people set up their society. We are different, yes, but we need to look at it. Because they have manufacturing, they prioritize manufacturing. Engineers have a lot of jobs. You'll find that mechanical engineers and civil engineers are looked for, they are prioritized, because that is what actually builds the nation. You're not going to have
innovation, so
exactly.
Scientists are really highly valued.
Yes. In my university right now, they actually have, they teach you innovation. They support you in innovating. We need to look and
actually governments provide funds just for people to innovate, right? That's what research is. Believe it or not, most research in Uganda is actually sponsored by other countries. So you can guess who they're innovating for.
I believe it. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're coming to you from the Athena Hotel in Bugolobi, and we're speaking about brain drain tonight. So we know many of the people who leave actually have their country at heart. I don't know that. Okay, I know some people who leave and I want to just go and live abroad. But I know some, but then there's some who most people would actually want to come back. But maybe the question is the opportunities, and I guess that's what we've been speaking about. But you've been away, you've come back. What opportunities do you see for people who are not thinking that there's something for them to come back home to? Are there opportunities?
I mean, definitely. I would say, actually, that's what strikes me is the opportunities in every field, be it social services, engineering, medicine, administration. There is no shortage of need for people with those skills. The challenge that even makes it very difficult to even see those opportunities is, again, how the system works. If you work in a system that really operates a lot on favoritism and so on and so forth, and the people you see who succeed generally are the people who are able to play that kind of game and political influence everywhere. It's almost impossible to envisage you fitting into those opportunities.
When we see a lot of people who left, it's to come back and set up maybe your own practice or something, because I figure it's difficult to fit into the system. Is that what it is, Juliana?
I think what you find, the advantage we have as Uganda is virgin territory. There's actually, there's massive opportunities that haven't been explored. I think for somebody to go and bring up an idea, something you've seen abroad or overseas, of course the obstacles, there are obstacles here, but I think somebody just has to persevere. In agriculture, there's opportunities. I've seen lots of people set up in the foods industry. There's actually a lot of success stories where people from the US or the UK have moved back and have actually started businesses here. Are there challenges there? Yes. I think you really have to be willing to stay the course.
And take the risk.
Right? Yes. There's risk, there's a lot involved.
So you come and invest your money?
Yes. I've actually seen people who come back, they come back with their money, they try to invest in things, and they lose their money through many avenues. They lose their money, and they find that they actually have to go back and make more money.
Some more.
Yes.
And come and reinvest.
Yes.
When you've studied the territory.
Testament to the fact that people actually want to come back. Those same people keep trying and trying.
I think in general, the same most people who leave, they have an intention to return. Yeah. It's just where they have something to return to, and of course, the longer you stay out, probably the harder it becomes to come back. You get used to certain ways of life and culture that
especially like for doctors. Doctors, I think it's okay. You go, you work as a doctor, and you come back. You can still work as a doctor.
Right.
Albeit with probably
it's kind of a standardized way of doing things.
But
everywhere.
If I am not a professional and I go away and I am just working at any ordinary job,
right,
and I come back, you probably will find that the people you were with have advanced so much you can't fit in with them anymore. You just have to go back.
Advanced how though?
These are people you find they've built a home, they've set up businesses, because business in Uganda really survives if the owner is there to watch over it. But if you're out there and you're sending money to do a business, it will not survive. So you come back, someone has a good job, they have a good home, they have a side business that they can rely on, and
they've risen to political positions. It's of course a lot easier to do that in Uganda than out there.
Yeah.
So you realize you're at a different level altogether.
Exactly. You can really feel like
I shouldn't be here.
You've regressed
to where I've grown myself into somebody.
But the opportunities, as just to look at the brighter side, really. What's in for you when you come back, Ryan? Most likely you're in a minority. You're in a minority where you are in the West. It's not your home. It's not your home turf. You probably don't have a big network. You may have lack of access to certain opportunities there because of where you come from. Now, if you came back, one, you're kind of, yes, you may have left, you have lost some time, but actually you are more or less on an equal footing. You can speak the language. You may have networks here. You have your family to back up, and you're part of mainstream. You don't stand out. So actually, if you armed with the skills you've obtained from elsewhere, you may have perhaps more opportunity actually to advance yourself. And I'll say this, one, you appreciate the differences there, but you also appreciate the unique situation of this environment. So that kind of mix can actually lead to a successful venture.
And I think the social lifestyle, I think that's the biggest incentive for people to return home. But of course, with Uganda, there's the weather aspect as well. I mean, you don't find many places with weather like Uganda where you're comfortable all year round and not showering snow or living in an AC all the time. So
I work part-time in an office, but they are always laughing at me because I'm always wearing a sweater. And for them, as soon as summer even hints at being around, they put on the AC. So they were saying, by the time Helen starts taking off her sweater, you just know things are not good. Yeah.
When you speak about the weather, it just seems like the only one thing that keeps people wanting to come home, the weather and family, the social ties. Are there challenges that that cut across, the struggles of the people who've been away that now come back or want to come back and are unable to come back?
So I think one of the things that keeps people away, some people tend to have, families, children in school, and that keeps that makes a decision to come back harder, because then they've got to find schools, they make sure they've got friends, they've got networks, so it becomes difficult for them to come. That's one thing, especially if people stay for a long time abroad. Number two, in some situations, it requires time before someone can get maybe citizenship or permanent residency to allow them to have the option of going back should they come back. So that keeps people tied down until they have got a stable residence status there. Okay. The rest we've discussed is about get the opportunities back home.
The other thing I think is I don't know whether it's culture or just indiscipline, but there are some things that are so routine here that can make you really averse to settling down here. Unreliability. People are so unreliable. As in, when someone tells you something in Uganda, you don't even believe it's true until it happens, right? As in, someone tells you I'll be there in 5 minutes. That could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. Someone tell you meet me in Kampala. They could be actually in Masaka at that time, so you don't know what to believe, what not to believe, Yes. You take your car to a mechanic to fix it, they tell you fix it, you know actually whether they've done it or they've just made it worse. You go to a doctor and you have to double guess, they really make the diagnosis, they don't, so it's you have to learn to operate in a system of extreme uncertainty and unreliability.
I think there is the unreliability. And then there's the social services. A friend of mine who is a doctor once told me, the biggest mistake you can make in Uganda is to fall sick. And she's a doctor. And I thought, okay, I have 3 children. Children are always, falling sick. And this is a tropical country, If I'm going to go to a doctor and they're not going to be paying attention, that could be really, it could get you a bad result. Okay, I was listening to an interview by Bob Colimo. He was talking about his cancer, and he said his specialist actually wanted to put him on the National Health Service in the UK because the care there would have been better than with the private hospital. And this is, the citizens don't pay for the National Health Service, and it's good. And as a student, you pay the insurance for a year. I think it's £250 for a year. But you go and get treated. They do all the tests you need. It doesn't need for anyone to pay 10% more of their salary in taxes to fund the health service. Those are the services we're talking about. You think about it.
I just want to say first of all that it's not as bad as the picture they paint. When especially hospitals, because I've interacted with Dr. Joseph for a while. Yes. He's shocked me also about some of the things that are happening in Mulago that I didn't know, mostly because a lot of us had decided I would rather not, go there. But there are options, and I guess maybe the picture that's painted sometimes is not what it really is. Yeah. But let's take a short break and I'll start with you, Juliana, when we return. for staying with us. Before we took a break, Juliana, you wanted to say something.
I think one of the things that keeps people away, when you're abroad, you're used to an organized system, an organized way of work. The schools work a certain way, the financial institutions work a certain way, and then your job works a certain way. So of course, Uganda is a little bit fluid, or very, very fluid. I mean, every system is going to operate its own kind of way.
I like your very careful choice of words.
And in a way, you have to learn to adjust to it. I mean, it's not easy, but you end up finding that, okay, this system operates like this. How do I get around it? How do I work within it? And it's not easy, but it's doable. So I think that's one of the things that frustrates people, where they say, I can't go to the bank and sit and wait all day. I mean, there's a way around that. All the schools work this way. I can't deal with that.
You have to learn all the ways around everything,
yes,
where it should be a clear-cut system.
Yes.
What has been the biggest culture shock for all of you when you came back?
Oh, the traffic.
The traffic.
It's I've never seen such road insanity like in Uganda. I mean, people say Uganda is the only place where even if you're walking on the sidewalk on the road, you have to beware that a border may hit you there.
Oh yes.
It's the only place where cars drive on the wrong side of the lane. And it's just crazy. I mean, I know many people who have returned and have refused to drive. Either you hire a driver but you just can't drive.
It's a badge of honor to be able to drive in Uganda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You wear it proudly.
Mm-hmm. I think coming back the first time around, it was, as Juliana said, that whole, the society can be a bit, not as organized as it should be. You ask someone, maybe you're following up something, how long is this going to take? And they tell you ideally they give you their targets 8 weeks. You check on them week 1, week 2, week 3. 3 months down the road, nothing has come out of it. While in the UK, where I know they tell you 8 weeks, and they tell you might be able to get it earlier, but our maximum is 8 weeks, and you'll get it in 3 weeks. But the culture shock that I got when I went back this time was about school for the kids, because I took my kids. Here, children go to school from 6, I think. Some start at 6:30.
The cars pick them.
I was lucky that I used to take my kids to a small school that was really, a small kind of private family-owned school. And the lady had studied in the UK, so they started at 8 and they finished at, I think, 4. You could pick your kids starting from 4 to help with parents who are working. Sometimes I would pick mine at 3 to go for activities, and that was acceptable to them. But I'm told there are schools where kids start at 6:30 and stop at 7. When I was still here, 6:30 was waking up time in my home. I was thinking, when does the child get to school?
Then beating the traffic.
Well, then that's the other thing. In the UK, the school is near, as in there are enough schools of a good quality near your home. You don't have to beat the traffic. The kids walk to school, okay? Now in the UK, the kids start at 9 and stop at 3:30. And in my mind, I'm thinking, on the world stage, when we are competing for jobs, which kids are actually better placed? Are the Ugandan kids going to be much better than these kids who study for 6 hours a day compared to ours who study for 12 hours a day?
And go home with loads of
homework.
And they need to do home chores.
That's, for me, that is something that I'm still trying to understand. I think it's not right for a kid of 8 years to be in school at 6:30 a.m. and to leave at 5. It's not right.
Yeah, I think I think you get culture shock if you've not been, especially you feel it particularly hard if you don't regularly come back. So I was coming back almost every year. So I can't say there was culture shock in terms of the social organization and how things work. But what I found more shocking was more the work, the professional aspect in terms of where you work. And for reasons not necessarily because of individuals not very good or anything, it's because of the culture in that there's a less accountability. Elsewhere, you do something, you have to think of the consequences of doing it, getting it wrong, which may be litigation. So every time you do something, you must make sure you're doing your best at it, and make sure you can defend and stand by your actions. But sometimes I find situations where something didn't happen, and nobody pushed to find out why it happened. It's happened, it's normal, I didn't do it, I don't know. That, I don't know, that work.
People drop the ball a lot.
Yeah, so you have to take the responsibility.
They drop the ball, they don't catch the ball.
Yeah.
They don't even bother.
I'll give you a situation. If someone,
God will solve it.
Yeah. If someone, again, a situation. If someone died, if someone went to hospital and they passed away, be sure that everyone is going to be asking why that patient died. Is there anything that could have been done to prevent that patient from dying? And if something is found that could have been done and was negligently, there's negligence on that aspect, it's going to be investigated. So there's kind of something that stops you, prevents you from being careless.
Can you talk about that? I'm thinking of postmortems here in Uganda, where you get a result such as the person died because of failure to breathe.
I'm not aware of those, but
I was going to say that I know they do some investigation. Recently, we had a case with somebody I know who lost his wife. She was pregnant and she died. And they went ahead to the medical council and everybody got involved and they investigated the matter and found that the doctor, actually was negligent or something. So I think slowly by slowly we're picking up. I mean, we're not where we need to be, but we're slowly picking up. There's some good things.
Yes.
There are things improving. And what I'm saying, I'm not trying to blame people, that people should be blamed, or what I'm just saying is that as long as we take personal responsibility for their actions, and that's not just related to medicine. Yeah. It's in it's in society. For example, if I went to a shop and the customer service wasn't good elsewhere, you'd be accountable. You're supposed to speak in a particular way to a customer. Okay.
Uganda spoke about customer service earlier.
It's interesting. For me, it was customer service. In the US, the one thing that's drummed into you is the customer is king. I mean, even in our business, it's always how do you treat the customer. I think here there are very many businesses in Uganda that have done a good job of making the customer a priority, and I applaud them for that. But I think there are other businesses that have a long way to go, where it's almost like sometimes you walk into a business and you feel like maybe the other person is doing you a favor. I'm doing you a favor by selling you something. So you feel that disappointment where it's like it's a win-win situation. I'm giving you something, I'm giving you money, and I expect a certain quality of product, service, or something. But I think, again, sometimes as a business owner, you have to be invested in the business, because sometimes it's not the owner, but it's the people who you work with. Are they properly trained that when the customer comes in, you look them straight in the eye, you greet them, you find out what is it that they want, not they're just sitting there loitering, waiting to be served. So I think our customer service needs to be improved greatly, and that's one thing you hear people complaining a lot about.
The other thing I would say, totally unrelated to all this, that actually surprised me about Uganda is the level of religiosity in this country and how it totally doesn't match up to the behavior of the people. As in people, everything's done in the name of Jesus, name of Muhammad, praying. Every night you hear all these loudspeakers blasting and all that stuff. And then you go on the road and you're like, oh, where are all these religious people, so very spiritual people? You hear all the corruption. Even with the stickers, Jesus is king, and then this guy just shortcuts you on the road. Like, okay, this doesn't add up with Christianity. All the corruption, you're like, where is it coming from? Who are these non-believers who are doing all these bad things in this country? So it's I've never seen a place that's so religious. I'm telling you,
Nigeria.
It's all over the place.
But also, we need to remember that, in my experience, Ugandans are quite innovative.
Yeah.
Individually, Ugandans are really innovative. It's amazing what you find people doing. I think we just need to support. We just need a system of supporting innovation. Innovation creates jobs. Jobs bring back people. We don't have enough manufacturing plants here. We need to be able to manufacture. Manufacturing brings engineering jobs, pays people to afford good doctors, so doctors will be paid well. If you have a manufacturing plant, everyone gets employed, HR people, procurement people. But if we are sending away all our manufacturing plants because of high power tariffs, we are just shooting ourselves in the feet.
And I think it all comes down to systems, right? As in, you talk to every individual Ugandans. Individually, they're very nice people, very forward-looking, very thoughtful.
They don't like
but
corruption.
Somehow when we come together as a group, things don't work out. And that reads a definition of civilization. Civilization is how do people, a group of people, come together to do big things together, you know, so.
I was going to ask us to close by maybe sharing some insights on how we can enable Ugandans who have trained abroad to contribute to the development of their country. I don't know who wants to go first as we close.
I think Uganda has, I think there are systems where investors are encouraged to come and invest in Uganda. I'm not too sure whether those are open to Ugandan investors as well, but if they are not, then they should be opened. But if they are, then there is a lack of marketing and, you know, education about the opportunities that are there, because people in the diaspora want to come and invest in Uganda, but they don't know what opportunities they have, what incentives they have.
Did any of you ever attend any of these Uganda conventions in whichever country you were in?
No, unfortunately I didn't.
No?
I attended one.
You did?
Yeah.
What was it like?
I think more emphasis needs to be put on, sometimes a lot of emphasis is put on the social aspect, and I think maybe, I know a few people who have gone a few times to promote or advertise have been a bit disappointed because of that, saying that, look, I went to advertise my business, but there wasn't really,
no one was really about it.
Leads, or most people were just about getting together.
Okay. So I asked that because of when you speak about opportunities and people not knowing about them, because I think this would be a platform.
It would be a platform, but if it's not working now, then it has to be improved, or other platforms have to be added onto them, because clearly it's not delivering the results, the desired results, so maybe it needs a review. But yes, it could be a good place to start. It should actually be for that purpose. Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, many people have said, you know, what most people really need is the country, government in this case, to take care of the basics, right? Make sure that there is a structure system that allows people to innovate, people to invest, good roads. Those are responsibility usually of government, roads, security, healthcare. And then just leave the people, they will fly with the rest.
Yeah. And for people in the diaspora, I think to successfully integrate back in society, it's important they keep links, networks, visit us often, communicate often, to find out what, because if after 20, 30 years someone comes back, it's very difficult for them to start from scratch. It's important to keep that communication, that linkage going.
I think a lot of it is because you were all professionals when you left. A lot of people did not live the way you did. So to come back home was maybe another 15 years after I've gotten my papers. So it would be difficult for them to come back home. And also I think from the people I've spoken to, there's a lot of fear of when I communicate to people at home, they're asking for money. You know, so people sort of shut down and get into their space and just try to set themselves up. Yeah. Juliana?
I think I'd say sometimes people put themselves in a box where it's like, if maybe I'm necessarily moving back, it's to work for a company. But I think people also need to look at the entrepreneurship aspect, that you can actually come and start your own thing. I think if somebody has done, I mean, don't just wake up and start something, but take the proper steps. Like, do the research, actually see, is this business viable here? Because sometimes people also come and start businesses that are not really viable here. So when they don't do well, they maybe haven't done enough research or really invest the time and take time to craft out the idea, come up with a proper plan.
Right.
But I think that should be an option, that I can come and start my own thing.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
We certainly are glad that you're back, professionals back to contribute to our country. And that brings us to the end of our show for tonight. We're speaking about brain drain, and lucky to have some guests who are able to share what their journey was like living, why they came back, and what they're doing with themselves for the development of this country. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition.